Okay, before I start working on the big board, I'm going to work on this piece of oak here, which has a lot of nice grain on it. I'm going to fill in these cracks and holes with some epoxy filler. I'm going to stain black, and I got some trans tin here, which can be mixed with water. I also have some gel stain in black, and I'm going to try the gel stain first. But before I do that, I got about a half hour of sanding to do to get it down to a fine finish. This has only been planed. It's not been sanded. So I use my belt sander to take it down to where I can work with the orbital sander. I'll take it up down to about 1500 grit. I'm not sure if that first video took, but at any rate, I've sanded this now with the orbital sander. I've taken it down to 1500 grit. But I started off with the belt sander at 85 grit, then went to 150 grit, or 125 grit, sorry, and then went to 1500. Now I have to fill in these cracks with some thickened. Okay, this is one of my test boards. It's a piece of oak. I've sanded down. I started at 65 grit and worked my way up to 1500 grit using the belt sander and the orbital sander. And I'm going to test this side with some gel stain and see how it works out. But first, before I do that, I've got to fill in these cracks. And I'll fill those in with a black hot melt glue stick, and then sand it down to about 3000 grit, and that'll make it just as smooth as, right now it's about as smooth as a mirror. I want to take it even smoother than that. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, the next part of this is to fill in these cracks and holes, some to go all the way through. And we're going to fill them in using a hot melt glue gun with a black glue stick. And after we get a bead of glue in there, I take this piece of aluminum and roll it, push it in tight. And after it cools down good, take a scraper and scrape it flat. And then I'll sand it down to 5000 grit. And at 5000 grit, I should be able to apply the black dye finish, or the black stain to it before I apply the epoxy. And this piece of oak, if it comes out like I think, it's going to make a really, really nice looking end table. So it's just the right size for a nice end table, and it's going to really come out incredible. So we'll see. As I'm working on the big board, I don't want to mess it up. I'll work on this first. If I mess it up, it's a $15 piece of wood. It won't bother me. Okay, as you can see, I filled in the cracks now with hot melt glue, and it's black. And I'll use some 125 grit sandpaper on the belt sander, and I'll sand it down to the depth of the wood, and then go back to my finer and finer grits till I get to 1500. And I should have all these cracks completely sealed, so it should look like it's really natural. At least here's hoping. It's going to take a few minutes of sanding, and we'll see how it works out. Okay, at this point I'm just finishing up scraping off the excess here with a curved file, a curved scraper, a chisel, and getting the worst of it off. As you can see, those cracks are completely flat now, In a minute here I'll start sanding. Not too careful. I'll dig into the wood, and I don't want to do that. Okay, a little bit of sanding. Get it started. Okay, then we'll go to some 125 grit. I still could use a little bit more here, and maybe a little bit more here, so I'll add some hot knuckle glue. Oh, the rest of the cracks seem to have filled in pretty good. And I'll let that cool down. And take the razor knife and get the rest of it off. And I think at this point we've just about got it. All right, I could use a little there too. There's another spot. All these little spots show up in the final finish. Even though the epoxy self-leveling, this is all good here. This is definitely good. So, yeah, we're in good shape. All right. We'll let that sit and cool down a little bit, and we'll get the rest of it off and sand it some more. Okay, at this point I've sanded it down pretty smooth. And there's still a little bit of a dent there, but I think the epoxy will fill all that in. And I'm down to about 1,000 grit now. I'm going to go to 1,500 grit with the orbital sander. And the orbital sander really does a great job. At this point, you see the green has really come up. And it's just as smooth as a piece of glass almost. So I'm going to give it up for tonight. It's about 10 o'clock here. And tomorrow I'm going to sand it down with that's the 3000 grit I'm going to go tomorrow with. And then follow up with a 5000 grit. Before I put the fine sanding on there, I have to clean up the edges here. Some hand sanding. Which I'm kind of at a handicap, have to do it left-handed because my right hand's kind of messed up. But I'll get it done. At least I'm somewhere. As George Burns once said, at this age, I'm glad to be anywhere. So it's coming along. The edges here will be done a little differently. I'll torch the edges of it after I get it sanded down a little bit. Just a propane torch and kind of singe them, and then I'll run the dye over it. It makes an incredible finish. I've done that before. It really does a great job. Okay, the oak has now been sanded down to 5000 grit, and I put on 1 coat of black stain, and I use a gel stain instead of a water base. So as you can see with the hot light, you can see a lot of green there, and this will have to dry for at least 48 hours before I buff it a little more. And then I will put on the first coat of epoxy. I still have to do the edges too, but then that first coat of epoxy is going to go on. We'll see how it comes out. I think it's going to be incredible.